Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner, brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and I'm excited to have a returning guest.
Yeah.
He's been on the podcast before and for some reason wanted to come back. But you might remember, and a podcast guest, I apologize, but if you're seeing this on YouTube, I have my copy of the trade of The Nasty, which was what we were talking about the last time this guest was on. But he has a new comic with some of my favorite creators, including artist Sally Cantirino. This is through Mad Cave. It's called Orla. It's out August 6th. Please welcome back to the podcast, John Lees. John, how you doing?
Oh, I feel even better now that I see you've got your own copy of The Nasty on hand.
Yeah. I love that. I got a copy of the trade of it sitting right here. Just maybe we'll talk about a little later on, but I want to jump right into your new comic with Mad Cave. It's Sally Cantirino's doing the artwork. It's colored by Dearbhla Kelly, and then Lucas Gattoni.
In the letters.
Yeah, is lettering. So fantastic creative team. I'm a huge fan of Sally's work and some of the other stuff that she's done, like I Walk with Monsters. Was one I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Sally since I Walk with Monsters. Like, I think I read that book and I've wanted to work with her ever since then. So
right.
Getting to work with her on this is a dream.
Yeah, I mean, she did another series with Peter Milligan wrote. She did the art for.
Oh, Human Remains.
Yeah, Human Remains. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is. Very excited by the creative team. I was a big fan of your work on The Nasty and some of the other comics that you've written.
Thank you.
So yeah, I didn't know what to expect by Orla. I didn't read. I like to not to read too much about things if I'm going to interview somebody before. Like, just read the comic. Let's talk about it. No preconceived notions of
actually
what
quite
it might
good.
be.
You're like the actual ideal test case that I want to talk to, because as part of the whole writing a synopsis or a blurb for the solicitors, whatever, we kind of have to give some of the game away, just in terms of pitching the book. But you're going into it completely blind, maybe you're the ideal person to talk to, but how it works out.
Here's what I will say, and it's funny because some of the things that I think the book is kind of getting at. My wife and I talk about, because we have two daughters, right? And so my kids they're young, they're 12 and 8. But my wife talks about and I've mentioned this before on different comics and talking to different creators. Like, one of the things we've talked about is sometimes she'll be like, I want to go for a run. And I'm like, well, just go for a run at this park. She goes, well, I don't want to go for a run by myself at that park.
Yeah,
and we talk about how there are things that women think about that men don't ever think about. And in terms of dating, with your opening to it, there are things that I know as a man I don't ever consider. And you really get a little, and I bring that up because you kind of get a snapshot with Orla in the very beginning when you introduce the character. She just is on a bunch of dates with
the worst men.
The worst. Just I mean, the one guy has a men's rights t-shirt on, and even the guy that seems kind of okay, there are red flags. There's clearly. And so the first thing that struck me, not knowing too much about it and what Orla was about, is that, wow, there is just a ton of bad out there in the modern dating scene that I am 20 years removed from, that I can't imagine one being in it as a man even, but I really just have no concept of a woman going into the modern dating pool. And then as you get into the comic, there's a particular reason for Orla as to why she seems to court these very undesirable individuals. I mean, not to give too much away, and I know that some writers or some creators have an issue with my comic or my story or my movie or whatever is like this meets this, you
Mhm.
know? But it is a bit of like, um, yeah, I can't think of a equivalent of just like single woman out there on the dating market. Like, I'm gonna use like an old reference, like Caroline in the City, like Leah Thompson's like Caroline in the City or something, but
Yeah.
meets Dexter, and
Yeah.
with an even like bigger twist than that, which you
Yeah.
kind of get into in the comic pretty quickly.
Yeah,
But
like it's not too much of a spoiler to say that like the premise of all is like if anyone who hasn't heard of it is like a kind of rom-com creature feature mashup about this woman Orla who is navigating Seattle's singles dating scene while dealing with loneliness, anxiety, and the fact that she turns into a giant monster and eats men. So she kind of like navigates towards kind of like trying to get the scummiest men out of the dating pool to help other women.
yeah, I mean, talk about taking like the subtext and clearly making it text in terms of the comic. But
Yeah.
I want to focus on the beginning. So with
Yeah.
the premise out of the way, because those like that first page, your first introduction is all from Orla's perspective of these like 6 guys that she is on dates with.
Yeah.
And like in particular, Sally does a really good job because they're like every guy has like kind of a different diverse look, and they are each terrible for their own reason. And one of the things that I think really struck me reading through it is that it's to me reading it, they're all 6 of them are awful. And what I the next thought I had after I realized that they're all awful is I really don't think you delved too much into caricature or hyperbole to
No.
make them awful,
Yeah.
which is that really upset me.
I mean, literally, probably like most of those interpretations were probably like sanitized from what you'd read in an average, like like Reddit dating like page about people's bad date stories or like relationship
Yeah.
pages. Because you often see this, but it's like I remember at one point, like on Twitter, I used to follow. It was like like a kind of like a Twitter page that kind of had like the best kind of highlights of like like dating advice Reddits, and it was always inevitably like like the men in the thing were like like that this like my girlfriend of 5 years was putting a little bit of weight, like should I dump her? And then like and then like the women are like like this guy's perfect in every single way apart from the fact that he kills dogs in the weekend. Like am I overreacting? It's like. And
Yeah.
so it just continues to show you what kind of dynamics in a play.
Absolutely. Like anyone who has like gone through Reddit a little bit, or even like I can't remember. I apologize. I can't remember the name of the creator, but there's a guy on TikTok who I think is they call him the green flag guy, and he does like or a red flag guy, but he'll like stitch other TikTok videos with people saying like things have happened or complaining or whatever, and he'll
Yeah.
he's running around in the background with a red flag, and it's just like um yeah, like it's unbelievable, like the things that are sometimes excused in terms of behavior. um and I love that, and now there is like kind of like a shorthand for certain things. Like you just have one character that asks, like, is she into crypto?
That's weirdly
That's
the most dated part of the book because like I wrote this like script back in like 2023. Like anybody kept the bubble so thoroughly burst by now that guy might be extinct. That same guy probably be saying the into AI now. Like if I was doing the comic.
right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He's probably like AI guy or what, but I still think like that just paints a picture of somebody like that shorthand now that it's like, oh, I don't like what is that guy, doing? But yeah, well, she kind of then after after page 1, and we just get this introduction from Orla's perspective of these 6 guys, and then she ends up, one walks her home, and we kind of really get into the heart of the comic, and you kind of like see a bit of more of like Orla's life and what her whole deal is, and then um but what I mean, the thing is though, like other than turning into a man-eating monster. Orla seems great. I mean, she's
Nobody's
the
perfect.
way Sally has drawn her, the way you guys have designed her, she's absolutely adorable. She seems to have like a little crush maybe with somebody that owns a bookshop near you know, near her shop where she restores antique furniture. She brings them like, I don't know, a pastry or a croissant or
An
something.
almond croissant, yeah.
An almond croissant, Gwyn, who runs the bookshop. Um, and so it, there's this really kind of sweetness to her. When we see her interact with somebody who is not like a terrible like man in the dating pool, but you've also infused her with this darkness, not just the monster part of it. Like there's a terrifying, I thought, and like deeply sad scene where she's trying to figure out a picture for her dating profile. And she is absolutely awful to herself. Like she is, I mean, mean does not begin to describe how the terrible things she says like to herself in the mirror. And it is, you go from like wondering like what her deal is that she does this, and is she not just a literal monster, but is it okay in terms of what she's doing, to seeing how she has this kind of sweet, sensitive, awkward side.
Yeah.
I felt unbelievably sad, like, going through that. Like, there's layers upon layers to, like, Orla's mental health, and I am very concerned about moving
Yeah, I
forward. I
mean, like,
felt
that for me,
so
that page you're
badly for
talking
her.
yeah, I mean, that page you're talking about with, like, the sort of, like, montage of her taking, like, looking through old pictures and, like, trying to find the right selfie, like, that for me is when the character kind of, like, got unlocked for me. Like, I kind of felt like before that I had, like, kind of, like, a concept or, like, a elevator pitch. I think that was the page where I figured out, like, who Orla is and, like, like, what how, like, someone who's, like, fundamentally like unhappy with themselves, like, and like, and it's and obviously not the same as the gay, but I think, like, I've definitely had, like, like my share of like trying to look through, like, maybe like I've been invited to a convention or something, or like, can you send us an author picture? I've been trying to like look through like all my pictures, but I can't find one good picture of myself that I don't hate.
Yeah.
Like, and like, so it's that kind of like, so like somewhat, like, it's like that's maybe something that's kind of like sort of universal or at least widely relatable. Um, and like, yeah, and I just wanted it to be that, like, even aside from the whole like turning into a monster thing, like, she's still like a very like human character, and I wanted people, like, to like Orla, even though like she's doing all this killing. And yeah, so like, that was a big part of it, kind of like exploring like the anxiety and like, like the mental mental health struggles, and I think that kind of like plays into like the whole like crux of the book, which is essentially this idea that, like, obviously not to Orla's extent, but we all have like a monster inside of us in terms of like, we all like, curate a polished, nice version of ourselves for public consumption, whether it be social media or when we go dating or when we're meeting a new friend or we're going for a job interview. We're always trying to present like the best version of ourselves. And then like it becomes like, who do we want to allow to be close enough to like see us and all like our like, imperfection.
Yeah.
Thankfully not like transforming into like a monster that eats people in perfection, but the general like thesis is still there. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that like outside of the monster side of things, we've seen like Orla's internal life and struggles, and like she feels like a fully realized character.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying, like, 'cause I, understand, like, if you have, "Oh, hey, here's this," we have this character, she dates men who are terrible, and, she has this monster inside of her, but she literally turns into a monster, and it's like, so we explore modern dating, we explore, like, you know, uh modern men in terms of the dating pool, and how women, the stuff they have to deal with, and like a very female kind of like centric uh position, like, obviously. But then, yeah, that page when you realize like, oh, there's a lot going on here. Like Orla has like issues with her self-image that she is, I mean, struggling with a capital S, with
Yep.
and that is we've I think everybody listening to this podcast, has probably gone through that. I would say most people, like I know I certainly do, when you are trying to find a photo or you're unhappy with your image or the way you look or like whatever it might be. And like, I mean, Orla's self, I don't know if it's self-loathing or like it is intense. Like, and you and Sally and the rest of the team, and especially the colors as
And
well.
like in Sally,
And
like
the
actually had like
lettering when she goes through that, it's
yeah,
rough.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just like jumping on what you were saying there about Sally, is like Sally actually had like a really good insight, like in the credit to her. It wasn't me, it was her that came up with this when like we were doing an interview just last week, and she was talking about like her approach to the Ick, who's like Orla's monstrous alter ego. And she was saying like her take on Orla is that she's someone who's like constantly trying to take up like less space. She's always trying to contract herself. She's always trying to kind of like look more presentable. She's always like, worried about her image and how she looks and how she like interacts with other people. And like the Ick is just like something that entirely just is all about consuming and like, taking up as much space as it wants. Like it takes up a whole room, like, and it eats, and that's all it does, and it's less, it's like all of the things that Orla kind of like buttons down and represses and kind of like, is like, there's like that part of her that's like fully free.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when the ick, which is great, because that word is as kind of like entered the lexic. I mean, it's been around for a while, but ick as like an online term is like that
Yeah.
somebody does something and you get like that feeling of it, it gave
The
me
Ick,
the
yeah.
ick, or that person gave me the ick when they did this, and like to have the monster be named that. But yeah, when the ick is first revealed, like we kind of, it's like two, I think it's like two panels that are kind of like inset where we kind of see it. And then the rest of that page, you see the ick takes up most of the space in the room with the first man that, she's in the room with.
And it's an amazing design by Sally. Sally puts so much thought into that. The amount of like, I saw her mood board when she was developing that. She had like pictures of like goats, like a weird type of goat, and like anglerfish, and she was drawing a lot of stuff from nature to try like, I think it really comes across like an animal that's like really been thought out.
Yeah. And it's interesting because what I like looking at the ick, because the ick, has horns, claws, who still kind of maintains Orla's blonde hair, which I think is a
That was a
wonderful
surprise
touch.
to me. Like I
But
was like expecting that was a Sally
yeah,
touch.
but thinking of monster design from like Monsters Inc., right?
Yeah.
As an example, and Monsters Inc., has some phenomenal monster design where you see how they can be terrifying, but then you also see something like, Sully, who kind of looks like cuddly at times. And like, I don't know, there's something about Orla where you think, man, if you change just like like had her smile, had the ick smile, or like one or two
Yeah.
things, like the ick could kind of be like totally different. Like it could
Yeah.
be an imaginary best friend type of monster.
Yeah, I think
But
like,
man,
like
like
Sally's done
sharp,
such a good job of that. Like made
yeah,
them huggable, like, her huggable, It's
Sally like drilled down on like some of those details with the
yeah.
mouth and the teeth and the eyes. You're like, oh no. Like,
Yeah.
it
That's an
looks
interesting
great.
point, like, that like, and I guess like that's something that I hadn't really consciously thought about with the design, but was probably in there like somewhere, which is like, if so much of the book is about body image or like our image of ourselves, like, the idea of like maybe like the ick looks scary because it's tied so closely to like negative emotions or like, fear or this, like, and that little bit of tweak, like, could make it into something totally different. And that's an interesting kind of idea to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. But so great first issue. Like a couple other things I want to point out, just because I like when writers and artists, I like when they put little tiny things that if you're really paying attention, you will catch. So listeners, just skip the next like minute or two if you don't want to be spoiled by a
Oh
couple of
yeah.
little touches, but I really want to spell it out because these are things that I just absolutely love. And it's born from, and I've said it on the podcast before, it's born from the fact that I'm a very like fast reader, and reading comics, and especially to talk to people about comics, it has really focused me on try to slow down reading, because it's a visual medium to
Yeah, and
spend
just
time
taking
with the visual stuff on the page. So at one point we see uh the look is from behind Gwen, who has the bookshop, looking at Orla, and we see some little notes, some little like post-its on
yeah.
that Gwen has clearly posted up on the bookshop. I mean, you don't need these, right? It
No,
just I don't know if this was you in the script, or these are
no, that
things
was
like
that little that
Sally
some of
added.
them jokes are mine, but that specific one was Sally's.
But there's one note like taped up, and there's like 3 of them, but the first one says, "Note to self: dogs can't read." It's
The
like,
best thing about that is it says notice now boss can't read. There's another one after this like birds question mark. And then like later on when she goes back to the bookshop, there's a sign up front saying teach your bird to how to
to
read.
read. Yeah. Well, kudos to Sally. I thought that was like great. Like like we know nothing about Gwen other than runs the bookshop, seems a little bit clumsy in terms of how Gwen's introduced. Sally kind of clearly has a little bit of a thing for Gwen. Gwen seems like an actual decent person so far. Yeah, who knows where it'll go from here, but at least Gwen seems like a nice person. But what a fun little detail to think about. Like, what is going on in Gwen's head that they needed that note? I thought that like
I think it's
what
just an
a
important thing we should
wonderful
all
little
keep in
touch.
mind.
Yeah,
Just one of those important life lessons.
just something. Yeah, so I really enjoyed like those kind of like, little nods, like that little touch I thought was
Yeah, I
like
always think it's fun to have those little
um
world building details.
great. Yeah.
And that was something I know we had a lot of fun with similar stuff in the Nasty back in the day when we had all the fake video shop titles and all that. It's just like if you can have like little
Yeah.
things to kind of make a world feel more lived in rather than entirely functional, I think it helps make the world feel more immersive.
Yeah. Yeah, just looking back through the Nasty this morning, like in preparation for this, and it struck me again, like all those fun little, video posters on the wall of what is it, the Monster Dome.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Monster Dome video, yeah.
yeah, but all the different posters on the wall for like the fake movie posters again really brings a lot of it. It really helps kind of create that world, and it's something fun to look at.
Yeah, it's something that you live in for a bit.
So one of the other things with Orla is we see the reason she goes to Gwen is like she likes these kind of like steamy, maybe trashy romance type of novels, and like there's a scene later on where we see her like reading it, and like the lettering is great. The
Oh,
lettering
Lucas
between
had
like,
went ham with that page.
oh my god, where the whole thing is wonderful, where we kind of see in Orla's imagination as she is picturing what she is reading, and we have great like boxes in terms of the actual wording from the book she's reading, and then compared to what the characters are saying. So like the whole look of it, the whole design, the whole layout, and especially the lettering in that section is really great. It's really fun in terms of like what's from the romance book. I was curious though reading it. So did you just go off of like, this is what I think, a modern type of, romance book that Orla would read is, or
Well,
did you
I
do any
can't say
research?
well, I kind of like for me, like I don't necessarily heavily read like modern like body strippers, but I have read a couple like smutty fantasy, romantasy books like that were quite fun. But mainly I was just like withdrawn, like drawn from like some of my old favorites like Jane Eyre and like I'm like
Okay.
like the Bronte sisters books, like which I did read a lot. I was kind of like drawn from that and amping it up, but that's actually been some of the most fun I've had developing of this, which is like just trying to come up with this whole ecosystem of um like fake trashy romance novels. Like one of the future cover concepts, I think it's like the issue 3 cover, like requires like a shelf full of various like titles of like fake books. So we were like, me and Sally, like, in the editor Marla, were just like having so much fun, just like brainstorming like ideas of like different like crappy titles. I want to see if I can find some of the ones we come up with.
Oh,
Let's
please.
see. This is like a special preview for you. Okay. Now these are some of the ones I wrote down. The thighs of Fergus Foe, a tickle of taint, the rotting of miscutting, the dowager's cleavage. What else? His haunted crevice, the musk of Madame Melange, and cuffing season.
Wait. I think the dowager's cleavage.
Yeah, the dowager's cleavage.
I like that. I like the dowager's
Yeah,
cleavage.
like I would read most of those books.
Yeah.
Although I think like Sally maybe like won the competition because she came up with one which was just twin cheeks.
Well, that's great. But yeah, I just thought that was like such a nice touch, kind of seeing what Orla is imagining, and like it also really breaks up the comic well, because we not we have kind of traditional, more or less, but interesting like panel layouts, but then here we don't have any for that section of the romance novel. We don't have any defined panel borders. We have this great kind of lush purpley blue background with kind of star shapes almost in it, so everything feels kind of imaginary, dreamy.
Well,
As
I think everyone
more
gets to shine there. Like you mentioned, it's a great showcase for Lucas. Like Lucas, just in general, throughout this issue, did such a good job of. Sometimes, like you see, like you get the art of a comic, and it seems like the lettering's can like put on top, like and sometimes it can be like good, clear, functional lettering, but it feels separate from like the art. But Lucas really kind of like makes like the letters and like the word balloons and everything feel like part of the fabric of the page. It feels like it's part of the artwork, and especially it
Yeah.
really comes to the fore in that sequence. It all feels part of the one tapestry.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's phenomenal. The other thing I wanted to mention, where I want to Google this, because I would be shocked if this wasn't a real place. If it isn't, it should be. But at one point, Orla just walks past, I'm assuming, what is like a tea shop called Brutality, and I was like, you know what? I'd go there. I'd get my tea there every morning.
Yeah, I have to say, like that one was Sally's idea. Brutality,
Oh,
was Sally's. Right?
awesome.
I have one.
Sally's crushing it.
Yeah, no, Sally's done amazing. Like like I have one in issue 2, which is the Cronenberg Shrimp Co. But other than that, like yeah, so we both had little tons of like putting little things in there, which is just again part of the fun of doing comics, is just having all these little details.
It's with some of the other stuff you've done, and like The Nasty and some of the other horror comics, I feel, I don't know if this is the right way to phrase it. So my apologies, but this story, even though it has horror and a monster and things along those lines, like to me, this kind of felt, and maybe it was just because I so recently read The Nasty, which is set like in 1994, but this feels really like modern. Like this feels like right now. Like some of your other like the other horror work you've done, you could take kind of that story, and it might not necessarily be in a particular like time period, even if it's set like right now. But this feels like really like modern. So when you're thinking about the stuff you want to do next, and like comic ideas you have, and like where you want to pitch, like was there any reason in particular you really wanted to focus on this next, and have a comic that is kind of like of the moment, like right now? Was that in any way like the impetus to try and get this one going?
It's interesting because like obviously like it feels quite like sadly topical and off his with the whole manosphere and the way that's all escalated. But when I was developing it, like I wasn't really thinking in terms of like, oh, I want to do something that's like topical and is like of the moment. Like I was thinking like, yeah, maybe the technology changes or whatever, but like this kind of stuff's always been going on essentially. Like, it's kind of timeless in a way. And like, so me, I was generally thinking like, kind of like the core issues of like how people relate to each other, like, how the walls they build up, between each other, and like, and then like the just the terrible hellscape of like bad people that are out there as well. And like, so yeah, like sad. I wish it wasn't topical. Like I wish like it was like a time capsule, a time long gone. But sadly, it feels like we're
Oh,
gonna keep on.
sure.
But sadly, it feels like we're gonna keep on recreating these same traps for ourselves. So I assume like the sad feeling in my gut tells me that you could probably release this like 5 years from now, but still be saying it feels like all the moment in a lot of ways.
I hope not, but you're probably right. It's probably not going to get better, unfortunately, although I wish it
I mean,
would.
like I'd like to see like the like the future's bright, but then you see like the way like the kids these days are having their minds rotted by like certain types of influencers. So it's all the same stuff, it's just being repackaged, and but hopefully they'll learn better than we did.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. And one of the other things I was curious about in terms of like the setting of this, because this is set, in the U.S. And if listeners didn't listen to your other episode or don't know anything about you, they may be able to tell.
Yeah,
from
you
your
might be surprised to learn that I'm Scottish.
just a wee bit.
That's actually an elaborate affectation. I'm actually from New Jersey. This is like the prestige, like this is the act.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal. Do you do an American accent, John?
Probably not very well. I'll use my credit card.
Hey, that's not bad.
I don't have health insurance. But yeah, no, I remember like Joe Mulvey, who's
sadly very American thing to
like
say.
Joe Mulvey, who's like the most like New York person I've ever met. Like he's like an artist that works on my other book, Grawlgore Shanks. We were long time friends. We always used to table together at like New York Comic Con. And I think of him, and whenever he wasn't at the table, he's like, give me his cap and say, just be me while like I'm away. So I'm like, I'm Joe Mulvey. How you doing? Hi, Scam. Fantastic book. Not gonna lie to you,
John. That's not bad. Yeah, because you come to the U.S. for shows and other things, so you've been here for that type of stuff. How long have you been coming to the U.S. for like shows and to visit?
Well, the first time I came, I went to San Diego Comic Con as a fan in 2009, 2010.
Okay.
And then like I went to New York Comic Con to exhibit every year from like 2011 through to 2019. And then like in the latter half of the decade, I get invited out to like as a guest to shows like C2E2 in Chicago and Emerald City in Seattle, and I've been to Heroes Con a couple of times. So I've been like about a bit. I'm afraid I probably won't be coming back to like, the US for a little while at least. I've kind of like cancelled my plans. Like
Yeah.
but hopefully I will be back again eventually.
Well, I hope so. I totally understand the current state of things. But hopefully that'll change and you'll come back. But I was curious, and I don't think we got into this last time when we were talking about the Nasty, that comic. But something I was wondering with like thinking about it, because the comic's set in the U.S. and just when you do come here, what do you think is like what is the biggest kind of like thing that you have to get used to, or maybe the surprising thing in terms of the culture from the US and Scotland? Like, are there any like things that you have to get used to when you come here, like even to visit, or that surprise you?
I mean, it's interesting because like in a lot of ways, like we're very, very similar. Like, like in like, especially like not just generally because like we're both kind of like the same general cultural background, but also like because of how like ubiquitous American culture is and how much is filtered through to the UK, like, we're very similar in that sense as well. But
Sure.
and then like, like just the little things that are different, like maybe like little, even like cultural or like pop cultural things. Like whenever like you watch the telly, like, like there's twice as many commercials in the US than there is in the UK. How like, or like all the, I love one of the things I think that are fascinate me as a British person is watching all the adverts in the telly, and they have like, it's like this thing that's like exclusive to the US that I've never seen anywhere else, which is they'll have an advert, or a commercial, sorry, I should say. And then you'll have these little like montages of people like walking through the fields as this like voice says like side effects may cause exploding head, bleeding eyeballs, demonic possession, like and just like, and that for me like it's just like fascinating because we do not have that in America and in the UK.
So wait, like, so the medication commercials that do that, like that's real. I didn't know that. That's something I've
that's like a
watched
yes,
very
it's an
little
American like thing.
television. There's
Yeah, like
in foreign countries. But I didn't know
I
that.
I think it's a
No, that's
combination of like in the UK we have like a little like blink and you'll miss it kind of like written thing that comes along the bottom like for side effects, but also I think it's because like Europe has like more rigorous grounds for like allowing medical treatments and like things over the counter. So like a
uh-huh.
lot of the stuff that like is available in the US just like wouldn't pass like the standards in
Oh,
Europe.
well, that's
It's-
upsetting.
um and yeah, like like trying to think of anything else really. No, I mean to be honest, like I think the UK and the US are very similar in that, like, both have, like, good people and assholes and, like, and,
Sure.
like, so then there's anything that's, like, exclusive, like, to a certain type of, place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe I just sometimes it surprised me about America is how big everything is, which it really shocks me, like, because, like, the UK, like, I could travel from, like, I could get in a car and travel from, like, the north of Scotland to the south of England probably if I was really pushing it like in a day, less than a day. And it's like and like you could take like the whole of the UK, the country, and put it in like one of like the American states probably, And like so that's
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
always like gets me is like how big everything is in America.
Yeah.
So I say that's something that's quite different. I think like that kind of then translates into like how a lot of the changes pan out because everything's so big and because population's so far spread, you forget that like, America, like, covers, like, a wide spectrum of people, like, so, yeah, that's something that kind of, like, is
Yeah.
worth considering.
Yeah. There's a every once in a while, like there's a whole genre of like TikTok videos, I feel like, or whatever social media platform you use that they make these things on, where it's just like British folks, Scottish, Irish, who have come to the US and live here now and have made videos about how big the US is.
Yeah, it's just, like, crazy how
Like,
big it is.
you know, somewhere in like the Midwest or a big state like Texas, driving 2 hours to get to the nearest like Walmart or big box store is like not unheard of.
Yeah.
Whereas if you live in like a suburb of London, like you're not going like 2 hours is like a long, well,
Yeah,
my
like,
understanding,
two
anyway, two
hours
hours is
getting
a
to get
long
different
way to
place,
go.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's like something like it's really like, walkable, like how like so much of the UK. Like I live in the suburb. I don't even live in Glasgow. Like I live like in suburbs like a little bit outside of Glasgow in Rutherglen, like which is the centre of the nasty. Um, but if I were to get all like my shoes, I could go right. If I want to walk to the city centre of Glasgow, like I could be there and like on foot and like about maybe a little over an hour. Like if I chose the right routes, like, and not just like, like, so in places like, are so big in America, you have to have a car essentially to drive it to get
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
That's something
Oh,
that's
sure.
like, a bit alien.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. It's you do need a car to get around like most places. Like it is wild when you
Yeah.
go somewhere in the US like that is like really walkable
Yeah.
because there aren't a ton of places like that. Oh, that's funny. I the commercial thing though, like the prescription medication commercials though, I'm going to be thinking about that for a while because it's just something we take for granted here because they're so,
Yeah.
ubiquitous. But yeah, we make fun of them here, but just because it's like wild, some of the side effects they'll say at the end of it. But in any event, to turn back to Orla for a bit. So is it 5 issues?
Yeah, it's gonna be a 5 issue miniseries. Like I say,
Okay.
running from August through to what's 5 months after August? No, December? Yeah, August. Yeah, yeah. So August through to December.
Yeah, August,
Um,
September, October, November,
yeah,
December.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then like
So
the collection comes out
I
in
had to
March.
name them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't count either. I'm a writer, I'm
Yeah,
not.
I had to name all the months. Yeah, and then the collection will be out shortly thereafter. You said
Yeah,
in
I
March.
believe March 2026 is the current
Okay.
preliminary date set for the collection.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I can't see. I can't wait to see where it goes. Like I said, I love the creative team on. I love Sally's work. So
Yeah.
I'm
They've been
really
a joy
looking
to
forward
work
to
with.
it.
Like I say, I've been such a fan of Sarah for a long time. And like she's kind of slumming her work for me. Like she's done like Peter Milligan, Cullen Bunn, like all these names, like, as I feel like lucky to have her, but like, she's just been great. She's brought her A game. And I kind of feel like Sally's built up a really good reputation for doing like lots of like horror. Like she's like seems like a great horror artist. And I think you can see like some of the fun Sally's having by like getting to be funny, like and silly and do like different stuff here. Like I think it comes across hopefully. And yeah, I think the team are all just having fun. Like I know I'm having fun. And like I like when I wrote this book, I thought like these scripts are good. I'm happy with the scripts, but seeing the actual pages come in, like, is when I thought like, wow, we have something really special here. Like everybody's like bringing like their A game. This is like a real fun book. So yeah, I really hope that people will check it out because, like I say, I'm really proud of it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's tough to write like a protagonist who is doing bad things, eating people, and to make them like likable.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what you're going for, like
No,
maybe
that
not
was definitely the
likable,
kind of like tug of war we had, like,
right?
or I had when I was writing it, but I had this thing of like in my head, like the kind of main dramatic thrust is like rom-com type concerns, like, oh, like how's she going to keep this secret about herself, like from
Yeah,
Gwen? What's going to happen if her friends find out about this? Like, will
right,
Orla be happy? Will she find happiness? Like, or are things going to be ruined? And then periodically I'd have this thing in the back of my head saying, people are dying, like, like there's like,
right,
these
right,
people have families, but
right.
and it's that kind of thing of like wrestling with like, do I grapple with this? Do I try like and think, oh, like what's the ramifications of this? And then I think I kind of ended up, I was backing and forth on this, going how much do I really kind of want to address the kind of like moral murkiness of what's going on here. And then I saw it was a film that came out last year called Lisa Frankenstein, which is quite similar. Like it's like this is like a girl who like gets like a boyfriend who's a zombie who's came back from the dead, and people start dying in that. And that kind of like is quite non-judgmental, but it's like its solution to the problem is that if the main character is cool and likable, then it's fine. Like, and that is kind of like the vibe I've gone for the most part.
Well, I think it's tough to make a character like that. I mean, you can make a character like that, like empathetic or maybe sympathetic, depending, but likable can be tough. At least likable, like intentionally
Yeah.
likable, because we've certainly seen, and especially at least one of your men's rights character in this book is probably someone along the lines who watches something like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad and sees a character like Tony Soprano or Walter White and thinks that like they're to be like emulated. Now
Yeah.
they're interesting protagonists, but I don't think Vince Gilligan or who did Sopranos? Was it David Simon?
No, David
Wrote
Simon did The Wire.
The
Is it
Wire.
something Chase? David Chase or something Chase?
Maybe okay.
Yeah.
My apologies for not knowing, but I don't know if
He
they were
listens every week.
written
He
or
was so
compelling.
offended.
I know he does. I'm sure he does. Listens every week. It's very upsetting. Is but I don't know if they wrote those characters, to be like emulated. You know,
Well,
so I
I
think it's
think like watching like Breaking Bad, like I think like the writers like clearly wanted Walter White to be seen as like a monster, but then folk were like, because when he's lying to himself and to other people says, I'm just providing for my family, and some folk who have no sense of like, like context or subtext, like, oh, he's
yeah,
just trying to provide for his family. That's what he said.
right,
And he believed the
right.
lie, like, so I think that can
I
that is a
sometimes
problem. Yeah.
I sometimes think it's more like shallow, like than that. Like he says something that sounds really great, like I am the one who knocks,
And they go,
and folks are like, yeah,
oh,
that's the guy I want to be. It's like are we watching the same show? But
yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. But my point being though, I think it's tough to write a character who's doing what some folks might argue like or is morally like terrible, but to make them intentionally, likable. There's like you see Orla interact with Gwen, and there is such like an awkward sweetness to her which I feel is like just such a great juxtaposition between that and the ick, because they're it unlike some monster stories like a traditional werewolf type of story where somebody has this monster inside of them and it comes out and they can't control it. There definitely seems to be some control or intentionality with between Orla and the ick, and that I think is fascinating, and that just make that I think is super interesting in terms of the story. So
Yeah, I mean,
can't
for
wait
me,
to
like
see
I
where it
was
goes from
thinking,
here.
like for me that idea, I was thinking a lot of times, like in monster stories or horror stories, it's this thing of like, oh, I really fear for like the other character because I don't want them to get like, eaten by a monster, like, and that's where the tension comes from. And maybe like, going forward, like, and where the first issue leaves off, so I won't get too far into it, but like going forward, like, for example, like you might like Gwen and you might think like, oh, I hope that he doesn't get eaten by a monster, and maybe you're feeling some tension by that. But also, I hope people are thinking like, I'll feel so bad for Orla if she turns into a monster and like he eats like Gwen, like like, so I was
Yeah.
almost thinking you're feeling bad for her because it's like she's someone who like believes in true love and you don't want her to be let down, or you don't want her to kind of like lose that again, like so hopefully is that human investment and that's part of the tension as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But and there are some I don't want to give everything away. There are some other things at play that are kind of hinted at or glimpsed at a little bit in the first issue that I'm curious as to how they develop. But I mean I had a lot of fun like reading it, and um I just there's just something about Orla, and I kind of love. I think there needs to be more uh romance or rom-com comics, like generally. Like,
Yeah.
and I know this is not like quite that, but like, yeah, like play up those tropes. She's a girl who is hiding a secret and wants to know if anybody can love her. Like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
go. I'll strap in. I'm going for a ride. Let's you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, I love playing with the romance dynamics, and I like, although yes, it's getting billed as a horror comic, like or horror comedy, and there are horror elements,
Yeah.
and there's gore and tension and that stuff. For me, like I think of this principally as like a rom com or a romance comic, and I would love to see like more romance comics coming to the fore because I feel like back in the day, like there was a flourishing romance, like
Yeah.
market, but so many of the comics were just like these terrible, like too fat to love, too short to love, like
Right. That's
I love going out like for late nights partying with my girlfriends, or like a man would marry me, it's like so like it'd be nice to have
yeah.
kind of like a modern sensibility for like romance comics and like
Right. Well,
bring them up
most of
to
them were
times.
written in like most of them that are still hanging around that you'll see pop up, like somebody will post a photo on social media. It's like they were written in like the 40s and 50s and maybe like
Yeah.
into the 60s. And yeah, I would love to see some of that come back. But I think that's interesting and from a writer's perspective, that yes, I'm writing a monster horror story, but the reason I think it came out as well as it did, not just the creative team and you and Sally, which are both supremely talented, but just from like a writer's perspective, thinking that primarily what I'm writing is a rom-com. And if I just stay true to this character and what she wants and what is going on and treating the ick as, something she's trying to hide from people like you would see in any type of almost, romantic comedy, the horror is going to come out naturally from that. But to kind of keep that rom-com perspective, I think is very
Yeah.
interesting to hear. And yeah, that's
Yeah, no,
I think
definitely.
it
Like
makes
for me,
it
like the ick
exciting to
is like
read.
the kind of rom com obstacle. It's like I don't
Yeah.
know, like the email divide of like you've got mail, or like
Yeah.
it's like that. That's the kind of device.
Right. Yeah. So I very excited. August 6th, Mad
Yeah,
Cave. Um, Orla, make sure listeners, make sure you tell your local shop that you want it in your pull box. And Mad Cave is also doing a bunch of great stuff. If you go to I'll have a link in the show notes. You go to the Mad Cave website. I know they're doing something, I think, with a lot of their comics now where you can get it digitally and then you'll get the trade when that's out. So
Yeah, Mad
you know
Cave's
you'll
got so
get the
much cool
trade.
stuff on. They've got
Yeah,
like, it's like they can buy, you can pre-order the single issues of comics direct from their website, or you can get them digitally, or you can get, like you say, a full set of
a
digital.
bundle. Yeah.
Oh yeah, then or you can even pre-order like the collected edition now as well. So they do all that stuff like. And I think as the market gets increasingly fractured, it's good to know, like, you know, that anyone who's interested can go direct to their website and get their stuff from them.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can go to them, or if you have a local shop, let your local shop know.
Yeah.
They'll be able to. It'll be right there on August 6th if you're a Wednesday warrior, as they're
Yeah.
called, or if you're not able to make it to the weekend like me sometimes, you'll be able to go pick up the stuff,
And
and
also,
Orla
like,
will be
check
there.
out my like on my socials, like on Blue Sky, I've got this ongoing thread of like comic shops in the US, the UK, Europe, all over, that like are, you know, that I've found are offering Orla online. So even if you don't have like a local comic shop in, like, you know, easy reachable distance, there are places that will ship nationwide as well if you want to get it from a comic shop.
Nice. Yeah, I'll make sure to link, your Blue Sky, so folks
Yep.
if who are on that can follow you on there. And also, just because I really enjoyed it, another plug for the Nasty that was out through Vault Comics,
Thank
and
you.
I think it was you, Adam Cahoon.
Yep, it was an 8-issue series. George Campbell-Dace did the first 2 issues.
That's
Well,
right.
the
Yeah,
first 2 issues was him and Adam Cahoon, and then Adam Cahoon took over like full
took
art
you over.
duties from issue 3 onwards.
Right.
And the colors were by Kurt Michael Russell, and the letters
Yeah,
were
and then
by
Jim
Jim.
Campbell lettered.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Kurt Michael Russell, phenomenal, phenomenal letterer. But if you
Aye.
haven't, if you haven't checked out, if or I think I said letterer, but Kurt
Or
Michael Russell's a
colorist, yeah.
colorist,
Yeah.
and
I
Jim
didn't
Campbell,
want to kind
phenomenal
of like,
letterer.
you know, correct you there, but
No,
yeah.
no, please. I said the wrong thing. It happens. Look,
Yeah.
it's still early. It's the afternoon for you, John. It's like I'm only one pot of coffee deep. I'm like the 2-pot guy. So but yes, um, thank you for correcting me. Yeah, but check out the Nasty through Vault Comics. I absolutely loved it, and check out all of John's work. I just feel like
Thank you.
you're somebody who's. I really love the comics that you make, and so happy that you're coming back on the podcast, and so excited for Orla August
Yeah.
6th. So thank you very
Also,
much,
while
John.
we're talking about other stuff, I should mention as well very quickly that I have a
Yeah, please.
fantasy. I have a Kickstarter right now. It's kind of like a fantasy crime procedural mashup called Grawlgore Shanks. It's on Kickstarter right now. The kind of truncated address you can get it through is comicstribe.com/GS. That's comics with an X, tribe.com/GS. And this is kind of like, like I say, it's kind of like Lord of the Rings meets Knives Out. A dwarf and an orc who travel from town to town, solving crimes. It's all episodic, like self-contained adventures and mysteries. So a lot of fun. I'm doing that with Joe Mulvey. And check that out too.
Awesome. Yeah, ComixTribe does a lot of cool stuff in terms of the comics that they kind of usher through Kickstarter. But Grawlgore and Shanks, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I love Lord of the Rings meets Knives Out.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Dwarf Columbo solves crimes.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, we'll have a link to that, and when this comes out, we'll see if the Kickstarter's still ongoing. But if not, are folks going to be able to get that like after
Yeah.
the Kickstarter?
Yeah, like the plan is, we're doing a couple of Kickstarters. We're doing a Kickstarter, like it's like if you followed the Sync Kickstarters where we did like Kickstarter exclusive Docs editions, which were like double issues, like collecting like
Right.
2 issues at a time. We'll be doing the same thing for Grawlgore and Shanks. We've had the first Kickstarter, which is like collecting issues 1 and 2. Then we're gonna have one at the end of the year collecting issues 3 and 4. And if you missed the campaign, you'll be able to like, I think Kickstarter does late pledges now. We can still like back and get the
Oh, they
book.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
Or
you
can do,
select,
like,
if the campaign selects it, you can
yeah.
do late pledges.
Yeah, and
so,
I'm sure ComixTribe did it for the last one, or you can get it from the ComixTribe website or from my website. And then like once the 2 Kickstarters are done, we'll then be going to the direct market. Presuming Diamond's still alive at that point. We'll be going to the direct market and releasing like it's a 4-issue miniseries, and then we'll be doing a collection early 2026. So yeah, you have plenty of
Nice.
time to get your hands on it.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Yeah, I'll have links to everything in the show notes. So listeners, you can check it out. But and shout out to my brother Bobby, of course, the Cryptid Creator Corner's #1 most dedicated fan. Bobby listens to all my episodes. So Bob, I hope you're having a fun Sunday and have recovered from the triplets' 12th birthday party yesterday.
Happy
so
birthday,
my brother has
triplets.
yeah. My brother has 4 kids, but the triplets just turned 12. So Cass,
Wow.
Coop, and Kip turned 12.
That's like
which is
12 years
wild.
of not sleeping.
Oh yeah, I mean, and they Bobby and his wife Lindsay had them like close in time. So their older daughter is 13, and the triplets just turned 12. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot. Bobby hasn't slept in a number of years. But John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And
Thanks so much for having
really
me on. Like, I
enjoy
love the Comic Book Yeti team and Cryptid Creator Corner. Like, it's a great stuff, a great feature. So I was happy to be back on it again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. Rate and review us, do all that stuff that they tell you to do for podcasts, because it really does help. And you can follow us on Blue Sky, or we have a TikTok as well, and sign up for the YouTube channel, because a lot of these videos, if you don't do podcasts, we post the video on YouTube, so you can watch as well. And if we ever like hold anything up, like our copy of the Nasty, you're able to see it, which you can't see if you're a podcast listener. Oh, there's the Grawlgore and Shanks. And so, thanks again, John. I really appreciate it. So, listeners, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.